Hi guys, it's Pastor Kerry here and welcome to this edition of Finding Home. Finding Home is a little Bible study I put together to help you in your own spiritual journey. And so today we're looking at Psalm 51. If you notice in the title of that psalm, it says that it's the time when Nathan came and rebuked David following his affair with Bathsheba. And so we're going to be looking at a topic of what to do when you've blown it with God. I think you'll be blessed by this study. We'll be right back. So we're talking about what to do after you've blown it with God. And the first verse in Psalm 51 says this: "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions." So really the first thing that you need to do once you've blown it with God is to seek God's mercy. And in order to do that, there's three things you need to pay attention to. All of them are revealed here in this psalm. Notice in verse number 3 that David says, "For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me." So what David had to do, like each one of us has to do when we've blown it with God, is that we have to quit living the lie. He knew his transgressions. He finally owned up to them. And certainly there was a time in David's life after his affair with Bathsheba where really his focus was on covering up his sin rather than confessing it. And so as a result of that, and there was no progress in his spiritual life. And that's true with each one of us. When we've blown it with God, what we need to do is that we need to focus, first of all, on quit living the lie if we're going to receive God's mercy. The second thing that we need to do when we've blown it with God is to not give in to despair. One of the easiest things to do when we've committed sin is to get into that frame of mind of self-condemnation. But instead, if you notice here in this passage, what David did is that he took his confession to God and he trusts in God's unfailing love. And so God really, his desire is to restore that relationship with us. And so we need to bring that heart of openness to him and understand that mercy is available for us instead of falling into despair. Number 3 is that we see in this passage in verse number 12 is that David says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me." You notice the verbs there in that passage. He says, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me." And one of the things we know from our grammar school days is that the subject in those verbs is understood. What that means is that David is appealing to God. You restore to me and you grant me. And so we have to, if we're going to truly seek God's mercy, is give up all attempts at self-reform. Self-reform, when you really stop and think about it, is rooted in pride and self-reliance. It's not rooted in dependency upon God. And Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, verse number 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." So when we bring to God, when we bring nothing but our empty hands before God, that when we really seek his ability and his power to transform us, then we have the hope of restoration. Paul tells us in the book of Galatians, having begun with the Spirit, are we now trying to achieve our goal through human effort? And he really points out the folly of that in Galatians chapter 3, verse number 3. So whenever you've blown it with God, the first thing that you need to do is to seek his mercy. And you seek his mercy by coming out of denial. You seek his mercy by refusing to give in to despair. And you seek his mercy by abandoning any attempts at self-reform. Now we're going to go a little bit further in this topic, in this study of Psalm 51. And so make sure you come back to us and continue on with us in this journey. Like us here on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.